this is a part of the interview that you are leading because you have the free reign to ask them anything that you want. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Nadine and this is Legally Diverse, a platform I've set up to help aspiring solicitors reach their goal as quickly as possible whilst keeping you motivated throughout the process. So today, I'm going to be talking about the do's and the don'ts when it comes to interview questions. I'm going to be going through certain questions you definitely don't want to ask and certain questions that you should think about asking in order to ensure that you conclude the interview in the best way possible. So stay tuned and we'll get straight into the video. So you've done all of your interview prep, the interview's been going well, you get to the ending and then they ask you,
so, do you have any questions for us?
The answer is always yes, but there are obviously certain things you do want to ask and certain things you probably don't want to ask. So I'm going to start with the definitely don'ts first. Tip number 1, I'm going to start with the obvious one of definitely not asking about pay. You don't want to ask about pay, you probably don't want to ask about benefits. Why? Because, I mean, let's be honest, the pay information and the benefits information is easily accessible, so you probably looked at that before the interview. But even if it isn't, you probably don't want to start off by asking them about something like pay, because it shows that you're money driven and benefits driven, and that's probably your main focus when it comes to applying for them as a law firm. And that's probably not a good look, because it's often, as in 99.9% the case, that there is another law firm paying more than they pay. So it kind of shows that all you really care about and what you want to talk about is your pay. So yeah, definitely don't ask about pay. Tip number 2, make sure you don't ask questions that are very, very easily found on their website or out in the public domain generally. So for example, you don't want to ask them about how much offices they have, where their offices are located, or whether a firm does a particular practice area. Why? Because I'm sure if you did a very, very quick Google, you'd find that information out immediately. So if you ask that type of question, it kind of shows them that you haven't done even the basic research when it comes to the firm. So then they'll start to question how invested you really are in them as a firm if you can't provide answers to the simple questions. So before you ask a question or before you think about answering a particular question, make sure you've done some research before you get into the interview. This is your opportunity to talk about what you want to talk about, so make use of the time you have. Tip number 3, be aware of who you're asking your question to. And what I mean by that is certain questions are good for certain people. So for example, you don't necessarily want to speak about training contract seat options or training contract seat rotations or the process for that with a partner or a senior associate. Those type of questions are better suited to graduate recruitment. So make sure the question you're asking can actually be answered by the person that you're asking. So if your interviewers are senior associates or partners, you want to ask them something that they would have access to. Likewise, if the partner that's interviewing you is a partner in litigation, you want to think about whether the question you have on real estate or banking is something that they may know the answer to. Because the last thing you want to do is make them feel uncomfortable because they don't have the information that you require. So think about the questions you have and think about whether the question should actually be asked to the person that you're in front of. If in doubt, probably choose a different question. Tip number 4. Now, as much as you can, you want to try and make your interview feel more like a conversation. So what you want to do is make sure that you don't ask the interviewer closed questions. Now, closed questions are questions that literally require a yes or a no. It doesn't actually require extra information or further details. So for example, you don't want to ask the interviewer,
do you enjoy working here?
Because they could turn around and literally just say, yes. And then it's like, okay, where do we go from here? So you want to make sure that the questions that you ask them require more information from them automatically. So For example, you want to ask them something like,
so what's the most exciting case that you've worked on?
And that way they have to talk in more detail about what the case was, maybe who the client was, and what they enjoyed about it. So I've kind of covered some of my don'ts. If you're finding these helpful, please don't forget to like this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe. Now let's move on to my do's. Tip number 5. As well as making the interview more like a conversation, you want to use it as an opportunity to build some type of short-term rapport relationship with your interviewers. This is a part of the interview that you are leading because you have the free reign to ask them anything that you want. So try and build that relationship. As humans, we kind of like to talk about ourselves. So you want to ask questions that allows them to explain their experiences, what they've done and what they like. So ask some questions such as, what is the best or most challenging thing about being a partner at the firm? Or why did you decide to join this firm? Or what advice would you give someone in my position at the beginning of their legal career? Or similarly, what advice would you give yourself if you were starting your legal career again? What is it that you wish you knew? Questions like this allows them to start talking about themselves and give you the information that they want to talk about. And then you can use that information to then, tip number 6, develop the conversation further. So this tip is all about the ongoing conversation, asking follow-up questions. So they say something and you ask them to go into more detail about something that they've just said. Or if they express an opinion on something and you have a similar opinion or you have a different opinion that you'd like to share, then use that as an opportunity to engage on their point and go one step further. Like tip number 6 is all about you engaging and interacting with what it is that they've said in response to the question that you have posed. This is how you make an interview question a conversation. It's the back and forth. It's the free flowing. It allows both of you to get comfortable. I remember back in my vacation scheme interview, it got to the question stage and we were going back and forth having a conversation and the partner that was interviewing me got very relaxed in his chair. Like I felt everything change a little bit more. And that's what you want. You want them to feel like they are comfortable in your presence or they're comfortable speaking to you because ultimately you could be someone that they may work with at some point in the future. And so the way that they view you and the way that they communicate with you will impact whether they would recommend you for the position or not. Tip number 7. Another thing that you want to do is maybe display your commercial awareness. So if, for example, you know something about what's going on in the sector that this interviewer works in, or if you know some cases that this interviewer has worked on or the department has dealt with, speak to them about that. Whilst it's not directly about them, it does display a really important quality that they would like to see in their trainees or in their VAC schemers in general. So ask them about their opinion. So for example, if you have an interviewer who works in employment law, you may ask them about whether they think the government should extend furlough for another year. Or if you have an interviewer who works in family law, you may ask them what their views are on no-fault divorce and whether they think that this is a good change for the industry or whether it will result in more claims that may not actually go through. Like it's a good way to engage on topics that they will be very much invested in, that they will be very much impressed by, and that will allow you to, again, go back and forth in your conversation. So if you can display commercial awareness with this lawyer in the capacity that they're in, and that will keep you feeling comfortable, because again, this is the part of the interview that you control, then do it. And then tip number 8. Now this is all about soft skills. So when they're talking, you want to make sure that you're nodding. You're letting them know that you're engaged. You let them know that you're listening, and smile. You don't want to be too cheesy with it. But I am aware, for example, that my resting face isn't as cute. So I do a little smile when someone else is talking. It just lets them know that, yeah, I'm listening, I'm here, I'm liking what they're saying, all of that. It makes people feel comfortable to keep speaking, especially when it's something that you would like an answer to. But yeah, guys, that is my 8 tips, my 8 do's and don'ts when it comes to interview questions. I hope you have found those helpful. If you have, as always, don't forget to like this video, give it a thumbs up, guys. Feel free to comment below what tips you found most helpful, or any other interview tips that you have, any of your interview experiences that you'd like to share. If you comment below, I'll make sure I comment back. And if you haven't already, share with your friends and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.